Welcome to Nugg Talk.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nugg Talk. We're finally back. We're here to talk about the NBA. I am your host, Loki, here again with my co-host, Phil. Phil, how does it feel that basketball's back?
I'm so happy about it. We have Clippers-Lakers on in the background right now, or it's about to start.
Yeah, it's about to start.
It's pretty cool to see basketball's back, even for teams that you really, really hate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good to have everyone back. The playoffs are going to happen. They're going to finish out the season, so that's good. It doesn't feel like a waste. And they're doing it very safely, and even during the global pandemic and all the other things going on in the world that are bad. This is like the one bright spot, so that's very good.
This is positive.
We'll talk about the restart. So the restart is happening in Orlando. It's happening at Disney World, which makes a ton of sense because Disney owns ESPN, so they already have the connection with all of the sports leagues, so it only made sense to do it in one stationary location. They're doing the bubble, so no one's allowed in or out. If you do go out, you have to come back and quarantine for 10 days. They're doing daily testing. No one's had a COVID case since July 20th in the bubble, so everyone's clean, and they've been clean every day since, so that's good, and I'm assuming it's going to stay that way. And then the rules are they did their scrimmage games. They did 3 of those. Today's the start of the 8 seeding games that are going on for every team. All the teams that are already locked in the playoffs are in there. It's just kind of the last couple seeds, the 8 seeds for both conferences. Those are the teams that are still vying for a playoff spot. And then if, let's say, the 9th team is 4 games within the 8th team, that 9th team will play the 8th seeded team to get into the playoffs. And that's the rules for how everything's going for this restart. So what do you think so far about just the restart, the location, everything, how the NBA is doing with it?
I think it's perfect. I think they, considering the situation, I think they completely nailed it. I think they definitely are the only league to have a setup and have their sports come back and still have no positive tests. MLB has positive tests.
NHL doesn't now. NHL's also one.
Yeah, NHL is good too, but NHL is also pretty well set up. I don't know the details.
They haven't started. I think they're doing the same kind of thing, like a bubble environment.
Yeah, I think also at the same time though, it is easier to do bubbles for those two sports versus football and baseball. Indoor. Yeah, it's easier to do indoor stuff, but. All in all, back to the NBA, I think they really nailed it. It's looks like they kind of are doing their best to keep the players entertained, and obviously they're not going to care about being entertained when the games are really underway. But yeah, I think it's perfect. I really like how it's all set up. I like the fake fans; it's fun.
Yeah, they also have the virtual fans that you can be a part of. And be at the games. I don't really know how that works for us because, do you watch the Altitude stream or do you watch the actual ESPN stream? I don't know how that works for ours because, as everyone knows, Altitude still has no contract with Comcast or Xfinity, so
and that's not changing anytime soon.
It's not changing even during a global pandemic, so that's cool. But yeah, other things that are really cool about the NBA restart is just like Phil said, the fact that they are doing all this stuff and being safe about it. Also, all the stuff that they're doing for the Black Lives Matter movement, still allowing players to share their voice, have names on the back of their jerseys that represent their ideals and what they want to promote for that movement. We've seen many players kneel so far. I don't think so far in these first 2 games I've seen one not kneel. So they're doing a good job. There's a lot of commercials about that. So that's all well and good too, because there was some concern from certain NBA players that this would take away from that, but they're doing their best to make sure it doesn't. So that's good to see. The other thing with the NBA restart, these 8 seeded games have nothing to do for NBA voting. NBA votes have been casted. We just don't know the outcomes yet. So all the votes have been casted for the MVP awards and all NBAs and all of that. So we should be seeing that
actually
sometime soon. Within I think they're going to announce them during the playoffs like they used to in the second round. That's at least what they used to do before they had the award show. So I'm assuming they're going to do the same kind of process. So that'll be cool to see. But overall, yeah, they did everything good. I mean, some players like Paul Millsap, they don't have the best room. He doesn't have a window. He's the only one without one. But I think all these guys understand that there's a ton of people in this world who would kill for the situation they're in. To have even somewhat nice of a facility as they do. These Disney hotels, they're still hotels. They're still very nice areas. They still get to go, like Phil said, do activities. A lot of them are fishing, using the rides, playing golf,
riding bikes.
Shit that people right now can't even do at home. So
exactly,
they have a lot of more freedom, and I think a lot of players understand that and are very appreciative. And like Phil said, the NBA is handling this better than any other league possibly is right now. So kudos to Adam Silver for that.
Yeah, definitely. Best commissioner in sports, I'd say.
Yeah, by far. We both agree on that. He's the best commissioner in sports right now. And then for that, we'll get now into Nuggets news. The scrimmages happened. We had 3 scrimmages. We were kind of at a disadvantage because all of our players were all over the place. Jokic had COVID in Serbia. He had to quarantine. Luckily, he eventually got to Florida, but it took him a while. MPJ and Monte Morris, they weren't apparently following the rules super well. They never got it, but they had to take a while before they could come here. PJ apparently just got in like a couple days ago. I didn't even think he would come since we have Troy Daniels, but he did. Gary and Torrey came in late as well, so we didn't really have a lot of our guys for the scrimmages games. The first 2, I think the first one we played with 9 people, and the second one we played with 8 people because of an injury. Well, actually, no, not because of injury, because Paul forgot to do his COVID test.
Oh, right.
So we didn't get to play with him. But overall highlights from the scrimmages are obviously Jokic is skinny now, so that's obviously cool to see. Jamal has put on some weight and looks a lot better. He had a very good game in the one game he did play.
Yeah, he looks very explosive.
MPJ and Bol Bol are also highlights. So I'll go to you. What are some of your highlights and some things that you saw in the scrimmages that you just want to talk about?
So I didn't watch the first 2. I had to watch highlights afterwards because of work, because I'm still working.
Yeah.
But I mean, and Bol Bol looks like he has all the talent in the world. He looks explosive. He looks like he has a really good basketball IQ, both offensively and defensively. And he fit really well with Jokic. And I mean, he like at times, or a lot of the time, he looked like the best player on the court. Definitely the best player on the team. I was really impressed by him. Jokic, he wasn't like amazing, but we kind of get that from him.
He had turnover issues. That was something people brought up, but I don't take too much into that.
Yeah, he's shaking off the rust. I'm not worried about Jokic. Jamal, he looks really good and he looks big, and that's what we've been waiting for a long time. So that's really cool for me. And then MPJ, I don't really recall. I don't think he played in the first 2.
No, he didn't. He wasn't there yet.
And then he looked really good in the third one. It looked like he's at least starting to look more comfortable. Still a lot of issues that need to be worked out, but he's looking more comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with all your points. I think the main takeaways I took is Jokic looks a lot quicker. He's a lot faster. Defensively, he's still not like great, but he's definitely going to be better now because he's going to be lighter on his feet. And I think as he gets more and more into basketball shape, because he's in shape, there's a difference between in shape and basketball shape.
It's way different.
And none of these guys, like Jamal had a quote, like no one should be in basketball shape. And if they were either not following the rules or they had the financial capability to stay in basketball shape, like certain guys like LeBron and Paul who have basketball courts in their houses and things along those lines. So Jokic isn't in basketball shape yet, so I think he'll get better as time goes on. The turnover issue, you're going to have turnovers when you have no point guards and you're the only point guard and you're passing to only 6'8" players. Yeah. We had the tallest lineup ever in the NBA. When we did our first scrimmage game, there was no guy under 6'7" who played. So that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I don't blame Jokic for those turnovers. Everyone's having turnover issues at the start of this process, and that's going to happen when guys haven't played for 4 months. People are going to be rusty. So Jamal, the one game we saw in scrimmage, I was super happy to see. He looked confident in his shot. He was aggressive. He's definitely yoked now. He looks big. Like if you've seen clips that Nuggets social media has posted, he's got muscle now on him. He actually looks strong. He looks thick.
He looks like
for lack of a better word.
Yeah, he looks like he's capable of like taking punishment and also giving out some punishment too on the court. So
it doesn't look like he's going to get harassed as much on defense anymore, which is good because he got harassed a lot because he was the weakest defender on the perimeter and also he was just the skinniest guy out there. But he looks way different. Like I bet you if you pull up a photo of last year's Shamal to this year's, you'd be like, wow, he actually put on a lot of weight, which is good. It's the thing we've been asking for him to do, which is great to see. Also give the same shout out to MPJ. MPJ looks like he also added a lot of muscle. He looks quite defined. He still has a ways to go, but at least he worked on it and
progress there.
Yeah, it looked like he could handle some punishment too when it came to playing in that scrimmage game. But the main thing obviously was Bol Bol. The Bol Bol hype is real. Everyone loves Bol Bol. The memes are all over the place. He's the new Taco Fall.
Yeah,
because Taco Fall is the worst version of him. So Bol Bol's great. I love Bol Bol. I'm a huge Bol Bol fan, and I will go off right now and say it. Bol Bol's not going to get any minutes in these 8 games that we're going to play, and if he does, it's going to be very far and few in between. But that's bullshit because we play better every single time we put Bol Bol out there.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those we're going to be really pissed at Plumlee for the next 2 months.
Yeah, I'm going to be pissed at Plumlee and Malone, because I get not starting MPJ. I don't think MPJ is ready to. I'm not saying start Bol Bol. I'm just saying give him more minutes than Plumlee. But I don't think MPJ is ready to do that yet just because his defensive IQ is very lacking. He makes a lot of mistakes. He's not the smartest person, as we can tell by some of his comments that he said.
Yeah.
But he's a young kid. He's going to learn. He's going to grow. But Bol Bol, he looks like ahead of his time. He understands the game. He plays well with Jokic, and not many other big men can play well with Jokic, and he can because he has the ability to shoot, and he's not even really like a center. He can play 3, 4, or 5, which is really valuable in this day and age of the NBA. He looked great. I think he should definitely get more minutes than Plumlee, especially in the fact in the third game, Plumlee was a -20.
Yeah, I mean,
he was in.
I didn't even have to watch Bol Bol for like a minute before you could just tell he's already just better. He's better than Plumlee, and I don't get the point in not playing him because he's shown clearly that he's part of our future. I mean, I know these were meaningless games, blah 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 blah, but he showed all of his potential. Like I don't understand some of the decisions Malone makes. We're back to questioning Malone, but also like liking Malone at the same time.
It's a weird time because like we can't really hate on too much because there's going to be, I bet you in these next 8 games, and we'll talk about once we get near like a predictions for the first couple, like he's going to make a lot of weird lineup decisions just based on who's available and things along those lines. But it's just like I can get not playing Bol Bol in the playoffs because you want to trust the veteran, but if you don't play him in these 8 games that don't really matter that much, it's like, what are you doing, man? Come on. But I don't know. I think Bol Bol should play. I'm very much on the Bol Bol train. We had an argument about this earlier in the week, and it's actually a big argument in like Nugget community is who's going to be better, Bol Bol or MPJ. I'm fully on the Bol Bol train. You're on MPJ.
I'm still on MPJ. I think MPJ has like top 10 offensive talent in the NBA. I think if he stays healthy and he reads a book, it's going to be like, I think he's just going to be I'm still very high on him. I know he hasn't been saying the smartest stuff recently, but
yeah, I mean, that doesn't matter. I mean, they talked about it. Like Malone said, like, I'm not going to put a muzzle on him. And like, he's a young kid.
Yeah,
he's got to learn. He's going to make mistakes. It's fine. Like, no one on the team hates him for the stuff he said, and he's learning. So
I think they all like him. I think they all everyone's entitled to their opinion too, even if it's a factually incorrect opinion.
Yeah. He's just got to learn. He's got to get a little bit more educated, and he knows that. I think he's admitted that to the team. They had like a talk about it.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, but I mean, back to like basketball. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Bol Bol's better than MPJ because I think both of them are going to be great.
Yeah.
So if they're both really good and we have to like talk about who's better, that's perfect for me. I think, like, I personally think it'll be MPJ, but we'll see. I'm excited.
I'm on the Bol Bol train just because I think his IQ for basketball is higher than MPJ's.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think it was Malone or someone else, maybe just an announcer or something, said that the reason MPJ's basketball IQ is not that high is just because his whole life throughout AAU, throughout high school, even for the little stint he had in college before he got hurt, he was the best player on the court, and he just played 1v5. He didn't need literally anyone else. And if he had anyone else, the other guy was Trae Young. So, of course, like, that helps out a little bit when your second best player is Trae Young.
Yeah.
But like he hasn't ever really learned how to play with a team because he's never really had to because he was that good.
Yeah.
Now he's going to have to learn how to play with a team, play defense. And those things hopefully will come. Like that's the thing you need to see with maturity, just not only in his personal life, but also just as a basketball player, see him learn, grow, gain that IQ as he plays. And a little bit in that scrimmage, he did a little bit better things. Like he started to finally cut. He was doing cuts. He was trying to space better. But Bol Bol is already doing those things. Bol Bol makes great cuts. Bol Bol makes great hedges. Bol Bol's a great defensive player. He has a good defensive IQ. He can still get better at that. And Bol Bol, one thing too for me is that his blocking ability just changes the game. He's already our best blocker by far.
I mean, yeah, he has a 7'8" wingspan. That's insane.
And he's 7'2", so like basically you're having to shoot over 10 feet, which is really hard for any NBA player to do. He affects any shot, and if he doesn't, he's going to block it. So that's on the defensive side of things. And then even on the offensive side of things, he has a very clean 3-point shot. It's like super high. It's soft touch. Like no one's going to block that. And he becomes even a 40% 3-point shooter. That 3-point shot is one of the most unstoppable 3-point shots in the league. Yeah. No one's going to be able to stop that.
No one, not even Anthony Davis could defend that.
Yeah. So like that's where the ceiling's so high. And I think also as he gets stronger and he gets more physical, he'll be able to play in the post some more. Because right now he's still kind of scrawny enough that guys can push him out of the post. And that's going to continue to happen as they play. But I think Bol Bol just has a higher ceiling because of those factors. But they both can be very good. That's the good thing as a Nuggets fans right now. We have two guys who are now a part of our future that both have all-star talent and could be very good players for us in the future. Yeah. We just have to hope that they pan out and grow.
Exactly. And as far as talent and potential go, they should be the two best players on our team.
Yeah, they have the highest potential. I think Jokic can obviously still be in the upper echelon with those guys, but those guys that should be our big three, hopefully. And if not, then you put Jamal in there too. So, but that's four good players right there. Before it used to be Gary, but Gary's totally out of that conversation.
Gary's out of that conversation. It's those four. No one else is really close.
Yeah. So but it's good to see. Hopefully we get to see more of Bol Bol. We'll definitely see more of MPJ, which is good. I don't think we're not going to see MPJ. Maybe not in the playoffs, but I still think we'll see him in the playoffs.
He'll at least get some minutes, yeah.
But that's just good to see. I'm glad to see that Bol Bol's playing too, because that's also a good thing. Like these guys have had injuries in the past, and they're both healthy and they're both playing. So that's also a good sign to see. And now going into what we want to talk about is our upcoming games. We are going to predict the first 4 games of our 8-game seedings. Our first game's on Saturday. We'll play the Heat. Then we play, I think it's the Thunder. And then we play the Spurs. And then we play the Blazers. And we'll just go game by game, predict what we think will happen. So we'll start off with the Heat this Saturday. It's an early game. It's in the morning. What do you think will happen for that one?
I think it's a win. I think we're gonna come out and at least hopefully take a step forward as far as coming to play. Like I hopefully think that now it's like they're in playoff mode. There's only 8 games until the playoffs. I think they're gonna come ready to win, and I think they will win. I am not super high on the Miami Heat. I think that we're a way better team than they are, and I think we're gonna show it.
I'm a little worried about this game just because they've talked to Malone in press conferences and things like that just because of how late some players got here and apparently some small injury issues with some of them. Will has a little bit of an injury.
Will hurt his hamstring and Gary hurt his hip.
Yeah, so some of them have some injury issues. So he doesn't really know who's going to be available for a game on Saturday. So that's a little bit worrying to me. But like you, I would like to think that we would go into these 8 games with a playoff mindset and that we would try really hard and we're going to show out as much as we can. But I'm just going to be realistic. I don't really see that coming from our team just because of I don't know what our rotations are going to be. There could be a lot of flexibility in the rotations because Malone has a lot of players to choose from again.
Yeah, we're still stacked even after trading away Malik and Juancho.
Yeah, so he has a lot of players to choose from now, and it's going to be interesting to see what he goes with, and especially depending on who's available. So because of those reasons, I think it's harder for us to kind of be in a playoff mode right away, especially because like a lot of these guys, unfortunately for us, and this is a disadvantage to us, because some of these guys got there so late, we haven't got as much practice time as other teams to play with our full squad and everything along those lines, and that definitely hurts, trying to get the rust off and everything like that and get chemistry going. So I think this first game we're going to lose just because I don't think we're going to have – I don't know who's going to play. And then second, I just think Miami's had most of their guys all ready to go for the most part. And we just haven't, and I think that's going to cause some issues. And also, who knows what lineups Malone's going to put out there? Is he going to take these 8 games to kind of see what he wants to do for the playoffs, or is he going to just stick with his guys and kind of go for getting good seeding? It's really kind of up to what Malone decides. And this first game is going to be just weird because it is the first real game after 4 months.
Yeah, there'll probably be some rust, but I'm expecting some rust from both teams.
Yeah,
hopefully.
And then also we just don't do good against Jimmy Butler. That's just a ongoing thing that all Nuggets fans know of. Jimmy Butler just does historically well against the Nuggets, and he's still going to be playing for them. So I'll say a loss. I'll say a close loss, but I feel like we might lose on Saturday, unfortunately. But that's fine. I mean, it's not like too bad.
If we do, like, it's okay. Like, we can afford to. We have to stay, like, go like 500, and we should be fine.
Yeah, as long as you like stay within the 3rd seed, 2nd seed, 4th seed, you just don't want to fall down to where you're the 6th seed all of a sudden. But again, also seeding doesn't matter as much now because of there's no home court for anybody. Even though, nice tidbit for Nuggets fans out there, our in-game announcer is at Orlando. He was at the
Jazz Pelicans
game. Like, you can hear him in the background doing the announcement when players score and sub in and all those things. So that kind of gives a nice home court advantage, I feel like, for us. At least the guys can feel a little bit of comfortability.
Wonder who's doing the Lakers-Clippers game.
I don't think, because there's 2 locations, so unless he's like going back and forth.
Back and forth.
There's got to be another in-game announcer, but I don't know. We have it on mute right now. It could be the same location, but I think they're doing 2 separate ones. But
it could be the same building. Even.
Yeah, it could be the same building. So I could be wrong, but So Phil says win for the first one. I say lost. Our next game is against the Thunder, so that we will be playing Chris Paul and those guys. How do you think that one's going to go?
I'm actually going to say an L on this one, just because I think Chris Paul is this kind of one of those guys that is just kind of...
He can manage the game.
He can manage the game, and that's pretty important for a game where you're going to see some rust. I think he's going to keep his guys calm. And, like, Jokic can do that, but also we've all seen Jokic get pretty flustered sometimes.
Yeah,
so
I mean, everyone saw the meme when he missed the pass to Bol Bol.
Exactly. So I'm going to say a loss on this one, but I easily could see us winning this one too. It's just kind of... Yeah, these games are hard to predict for me. Like,
we have one of the hardest 8-game seeded schedules. I think we have the second hardest. I think the Raptors have the hardest, or the Lakers have the hardest. One of the two. But we're in the top 3 for sure for the hardest 8 games in these 8 games that are being played, which kind of sucks, but it's also kind of nice because it gets you ready for playoff type of teams.
Exactly.
But for this one, I would say win, just because I did say loss in the last one, and I think we will have a bounce back if we do lose. But it's definitely it's up in the air. We've played the Thunder before, and they've kicked our ass, and we've beat them before. It just kind of depends on the Steven Adams Jokic matchup. That's always a good matchup, and then also how does Gary handle Chris Paul? How does Jamal handle Shea? There's a lot of good matchups within that, and they're not like a bad team, and they have a decent coach just like we do. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty evenly matched, I would say, for game back up and start. I think if we were like in a regular season where like we were going and we were in our groove and everything like that before, everything shut down, I would definitely say win on this. But I say win. I think we should win, but I could see a loss. I could, but I'd hope not.
It's going to be interesting to see how we handle this new situation.
Yeah, it's a different format. It's a different type of style. It's weird because there's no fans, so the bench can't get as much motivation, because benches always play better at home, and that's not even a factor anymore. So it's just like whose bench shows up just because they're showing up kind of now, and who's consistent and things along those lines. And again, like I said, the starting lineups for us and just lineups in general for us are going to be interesting to see. And for other teams too. We're not the only team kind of in this situation where players have showed up late or, there's weird quarantine rules and things along those lines. Like the Clippers are facing those as well. So, but we'll see. Next game is the Spurs. So we play the Spurs. They don't have LaMarcus Aldridge. I think he's out because of an injury. I don't think he even came to Orlando. So he's out. So what does that make you think about this game?
I think this is a win. I don't think the Spurs... I don't think we're going to see a Derek White situation again like we saw last year, and DeMar DeRozan can't carry the team. It would be a lot of self-inflicted things if we lose this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I also agree with you. I say win, mainly because since LaMarcus Aldridge is out, that's the best thing for us because he usually kills us. He always has 20 points against us, at least, just because, I don't know, we can't guard him for some reason. He's really good against our team, against our bigs, but since he's not there, you take 20 points off of them. The only way I see us losing this is if Pop just straight up out coaches us.
Yeah.
But I don't think that will happen. I don't think Malone's going to let that happen, and I think our team's talented enough not to let that happen, especially if Gary's playing at that point and Torrey's playing, because then we'll do the same thing we did in the playoffs last year. We will make sure to have one of those guys on Derek White so Jamal doesn't have to do it anymore.
And again, Jamal's bigger. Maybe he could just body him.
Yeah, maybe he wants it now. It'd be kind of cool if he went into that game and was like, no, I'll guard him and I'll make sure I do well. It'd be kind of cool to see that. But as long as we have our defenders back, and then, they just don't have as much talent. They're not as deep as us, and I think that still does play a factor. So we should definitely win this game. I'd actually be kind of upset if out of the 4 games we're going to talk about, we lose this one. Yeah. I'm okay if we lose to the Heat. I'm okay if we lose to the Thunder. But if we lose this one, I'll actually be pretty pissed off because I think we should win this one no matter who's out there and who's playing. But again, like I said, we could lose just because Pop's a really good coach. That's always a factor you got to consider. Mm-hmm. And then the last game it's kind of funny because it's the last 2 playoff teams we played last year. It's the Spurs and the Blazers. So the last team is the Blazers. Damian was out a scrimmage game because he had a foot injury. I would assume by this point he would play because they're playing for playoff positioning, so it wouldn't make sense if he just went there to not play, unless obviously it was a serious injury, but I don't think it is. So I assume Damian Lillard's going to play. They're going to have their full team running now because Nurkic is back, and Nurkic loves playing us.
Yeah.
So he's going to be super excited for this game. What do you think about this game and how it's going to go?
This might sound a little overconfident, but I think that we're going to win this game handily. I think Yusuf does play well against us, but I think Jokic plays well against Yusuf on the offensive end, and he's not going to, no matter how well Yusuf plays, I just think Jokic is going to outplay him. And then I think also just now after that series, I just don't think, I don't even say we're not scared of them. I just don't think they are worried about the Blazers anymore. Yeah. They pretty much manhandled them this year, and I don't think Yusuf would have made a huge difference. And Carmelo Anthony is on the team, and he's gonna. Melo is a good player. He was a great player for us, but that's not who it is anymore. I think he's just gonna hurt the team more than anything. I could be wrong, but I think that we're just a class above the Blazers now.
I say, Phil, say it with your fucking chest, man. We're gonna win this game. We're going to fucking kill them. We should kill them. We should win this game handily, mainly because, yes, CJ and Dame are really good. So there is a possibility that if they pop off, we could lose. But they shouldn't. At least as long as you hold one of them down, and we usually hold Damian Lillard down because Gary does a very good job on Damian Lillard, we should be fine. And also, our bench is deeper than their bench now. Their bench is not that deep. It's not as good as it was last year. They lost a lot of guys from their playoff team last year. Granted, they did get Yusuf, but that's it. I mean, it's not going to really change a lot of things. I think we will win this game handily, and we should win this game. These are the 2 games I think we definitely should win are the Spurs and the Blazers games. The other ones I think is a little bit of a toss-up just because, like I said, the first one, we don't even know who's going to play for us that day. And the second one, OKC is a better team than a lot of people expected, and Chris Paul is still a Hall of Famer, so you have to give him respect. But these 2 teams, they're both on the fringe. They're not even in the playoffs right now. If it started today, Portland would have to play in a tournament game with the Grizzlies to even get in. So I think we should win this, no question. So we'll just this should be easy, no worries. And if we lose this, then we can have one of our classic rant episodes.
Yeah, we'll rant because I will not be happy if we lose.
Because it's a divisional opponent too, and you always want to take those seriously. I also would not be shocked if this becomes kind of a chippy game. I actually watched the scrimmage game the Trailblazers had against the Raptors, and that scrimmage game got very chippy just because of Yusuf, because we all know Yusuf. He's a trash talker.
He's going to be chippy.
He likes to get in people's heads. He likes to just fuck around with people. Yusuf is going to do some shit once he starts playing us, and if he starts playing well, he's going to start talking his shit, and I would not be surprised if there's not like a scuffle, but they get into it. So it'll be a chippy game. It'll be a fun game to watch, but we should win. And that'll be the 4 games that we will talk about. So I said that we go 3-1. I think you said we also go 3-1. We just have losses on different games.
Yeah.
So we should hopefully do that. And that will be the last game's on next Friday. And then after that, we'll come back and do a podcast again. But the last thing we'll talk about, just because we should do it now before we get any inkling about how the standings will pan out, is our ideas about how the playoff picture is going to turn out, who we think will get into the playoffs. Just a seeding order. The Eastern Conference, the seeding is going to be mostly the same. I think we both agree for the most part because those teams all have such wide margins on each other that it's very rare that
it's going to be tough for them.
Someone's going to pass someone. The only one in the top upper echelon that's even close is the Raptors and the Celtics could switch spots, but I just don't see that happening. But we will talk about the Eastern Conference. So obviously, I think the 8 teams that are in the Eastern Conference, we both agree are going to stay in there. The Wizards are just really far away from making it. I don't think the Wizards will make it. But you think, and I think we both just agree that the Pacers are going to go down to 6, and the Nets are going to go down to 8.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the only change.
Yeah, and that's mainly because the Nets have no one fucking there. KD's not there. Kyrie's not there. Someone else, their whole half of their team didn't show up for this. They had to sign Jamal Crawford to even play and have a full team for this. So they just don't have anyone, and they're going to lose games, and Orlando's going to win games because Orlando's the only team that actually has home court advantage.
Yeah.
That's just how it's going to pan out. I think we think the rest of the scene is going to be the same. And do you want to say who you think will make the finals?
Yeah,
to start it off.
Sure.
We'll do it again once we get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But just like a preview.
I'll say I have it. So just to kind of confirm for those listening, we think it's going to be Milwaukee, Toronto, Boston, Miami, Philadelphia, Indiana, Orlando, Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
I still think the Milwaukee's the favorites, so I'll pick them. I think that other teams could come out just like any year.
Yeah.
Just like even like last year. I don't think a lot of people picked the Raptors initially.
Yes.
But I'm going to pick Milwaukee this year. I think it's kind of time, and if they don't make it, then they are going to be should start getting a little worried about Giannis.
They could lose Giannis. Could be even in the summer, or I guess not summer, fall.
The fall,
weird.
Whenever free agency happens.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. But I say I'm in the split with all the top 3 teams. But I'm going to go with the Raptors just because I think they have the most depth, and I think that will help carry them. But Giannis could take over. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown could take another step. But I'll say I think the Raptors will make the finals. And then now we'll talk about the West Conference. So who do you think will be the standings for the West? You can start off from 8 and go up or down.
I'll go 1 to 8. So I'm going to go with number 1, Lakers.
That one's solid, sure.
For sure. That one's not changing. I'm going to say number 2, Clippers. I don't really see that changing either. If they don't get Lou Williams back soon, and if like someone gets hurt, that could change. They have a pretty injury-prone team. They've stayed healthy so far, but all it takes is just one wrong step, you know?
Yeah.
I say that never mind, he's back. I saw Anthony Davis went to the locker room, but
I was like, oh no.
but he's back, so he's okay. Then I say number 3 will be Denver. I don't think that's changing either. I still think we're the best team in our division, and I think we're going to show that in Orlando. This one I'm actually not too sure about, but I am going to say Utah will stay at 4. It kind of hurts me to say it because I think they're kind of overrated, but I don't know. You know what? No, I take that back. I'm actually going to kind of do something crazy here, and I'm going to say that Houston moves up to 4.
Oh wow, that's a huge spot. That's a move up.
That's a 2-game move up, but I think that they just always destroy the Jazz if they play. They're going to gain essentially 2 games on them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're going to play at least once.
It depends on their schedules. I don't know Houston's schedule or the Jazz, but I could see it happen.
Let me look it up real quick.
But it's definitely possible.
Oh, they don't play each other, but I still say that I'm going to stick to that. I think.
So Houston
4, and then 5 Utah, and then 6 OKC. Then 7 Dallas.
Dallas is probably confirmed at 7. That's also a lock.
I don't think that's going to change. And I think they're a really good team, but they have 3 more losses than Houston and OKC, so it's going to be really tough for them to catch up.
That one's probably a lock.
And then as 8, I think it's going to stay as Memphis. I know everybody wants Orlando to be, but I think they're too far back.
New Orleans?
That's what I meant. I think everybody wants it to be New Orleans, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're too far back. So I'm going to say Memphis stays at 8.
All right. I agree with you. I mean, obviously, Lakers 1. I think Clippers will stay at 2, even though they're going to be missing a couple players because of quarantine and all that stuff, because they left and they came back. They're missing Montrez, Lou, like you said, and Patrick Beverly. Eventually, they'll come back, though, and they'll be at full again. But this team's used to not playing with everyone.
I think Patrick Beverly is actually playing.
Oh, well, there you go. Patrick Beverly passed quarantine then.
Yeah.
But there you go. So, like, they're used to also not playing with their full team.
Yeah.
They didn't start playing with their full roster until the season ended. So, like, they're used to it. I still think we will hold out and keep 3. I think it will end up being very close, but I think we should stay at 3, and I'm pretty confident in that prediction. I think 4 will be OKC. I think OKC is going to move up to 4. I think Chris Paul has done a good job of leading this team. I think they're talented enough where they're going to continue to win games, and they have a pretty easy-ish schedule from what I heard. So for the most part, I think they'll move up to 4. I think Utah will be 5. And I think they'll go down mainly because they don't have Bogdanovic. He decided to not partake for, I think, family concerns and for the fact he didn't want to play because of COVID-19, which is fine. So he's out. So they only really have a 6-man roster they're going to use. I mean, they'll use all their guys for these 8 games, but once they get to the playoffs, they only have 6 guys they're going to trust in their starting lineup and Jordan Clarkson. So I feel like it's going to hurt them. Houston, I say, is still going to be 6 because, again, they still don't have a center, and they're going to play small ball. And a lot of these teams have good centers, or at least good big men. And I watched the Memphis Rockets scrimmage, and Jonas Valanciunas fucked them up. And Jonas Valanciunas isn't that good. Like, he's good. I would say he'd be an excellent backup center, and he's a good starter, but he absolutely teared them apart. And I don't know how they're expecting PJ Tucker to handle any center, especially if like they played us in the playoff series and we put Bol Bol on him. What is PJ Tucker going to do on Bol Bol? He can't even touch him. So I think that's going to hurt them immensely. It's a running joke, but I actually think it's going to hurt them. Obviously, Harden and Westbrook are going to try to carry that team, and I'm sure they're going to carry them to wins. But I just don't think enough. Games.
I don't think they're going to have much success in the playoffs.
Neither do I. I think they'll probably maybe, depending on who they play, they could get to a second round, but they'll probably have a first round loss just because they are so low in the seedings. 7, like I said, it's a lock. It's Dallas. It's Dallas. It's just going to be Dallas. And then 8th seed, I'm going to go with the Pelicans just because the NBA has made it so that it's favorable for the Pelicans to make the playoffs.
That's true.
They have the easiest schedule in these 8 games, even though they did lose today to Utah in a pretty exciting game, went down to the wire. Brandon Ingram just missed the game-winning shot. But the way the rules are set up, if they're only 4 games behind the Grizzlies, and they're the 8th seed. I mean, they're the 9th seed, and they're above the other teams below them because of tiebreakers and record. Then they will go into a 2-game tournament. The 2-game tournament works that if the Pelicans win both of those 2 games, they will get into the playoffs. If Memphis just wins one of the games, they'll stay in the playoffs. So they do still give the advantage to Memphis if the tournament happened, but I just think the Pelicans are going to win. They have a very talented team. Zion didn't even play full minutes today because he's on minute restriction, but as this 8 games go on, I think they're going to take that off. Brandon Ingram popped off today. He looked really good. Drew Holiday is solid, as we all know.
Yeah, they're talented.
Lonzo looks better than he has before. I think that team is going to make the playoffs, and I also think they want that team to make the playoffs because imagine how much ESPN is going to lose their shit if it's a LeBron versus Zion first-round series. They're going to go crazy. That's like their dream. That would make them so much money and make the NBA a lot of money. Everyone's going to watch that. So I think it's going to be the Pelicans. Granted, they do give the advantage to the Grizzlies because if they do go into that tournament, the Pelicans have to win 2 games. But I just think it's going to happen. So I think that will be the case. And then who's your pick right now to go to the finals? I think we're going to agree on this.
It's the Lakers.
Yeah, it's the Lakers.
It's going to be Lakers. Well, you say Lakers Raptors, but I think it's going to be Lakers Bucks, and I think it's this is the one I'm more confident in. I just don't think
I could see the Bucks. The Eastern Conference is very much
I think the Lakers. I think there's no way that the Lakers aren't going to make it. I would be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the Lakers. I don't think LeBron ever took a break, mainly because he has the probably best house to ever continue training during a quarantine. He had all of the materials he needed. He has a court, he has a gym, he has everything he needed to stay in shape. And I'm sure he invited Anthony Davis over. He invited a couple players over, just a little kind of hush-hush.
Oh, yeah.
And still practice with them. I would not be shocked if that is the case. And these guys right now, I think they are beating the Clippers.
Yeah, by like 8.
Yeah, and they're winning by 8 grand. The Clippers don't have as much people. But I just think that playoff LeBron is a different animal that people didn't get to see last year. And they're going to see it again. They're going to understand how good this man is, even at 36 or however old he is, 35, 34. I don't know. He's old. But I think that, and the fact that if you put those two together, like you put AD and LeBron against Kawhi and Paul George, LeBron's better than Kawhi, at least in most people's eyes, and AD is definitely better than Paul George in everyone's eyes. So that alone just makes them better. And also, the Lakers did add new additions. They got J.R. Smith and they got Dion Waiters. Granted, those players can be bad for you sometimes, but they can also be really good.
Yeah,
it's kind of hot and cold situation for them. But it is what it is. I think it will be Lakers versus somebody. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm just kind of glad basketball's back. I'm really excited to actually be talking about it again because it's been a while. We will be back to doing weekly podcasts again. We'll come back next week and we'll talk about the games, talk about the next 4 games, and then after that start talking about playoffs, which will be exciting. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. It's fun.
It is fun.
So yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed the return of the podcast. We're going to try to be more consistent now. And like before, make sure to like and subscribe. Podcast is also available on Spotify and other podcast platforms. So be sure to stream on that if you don't like the YouTube video. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Go Nuggets.